Today is Wednesday, April 15th. Welcome to this edition of Nevada County Now. We begin, as always, with a COVID update. The time of filming, there is no change. Nevada County Public Health lists 34 confirmed cases of COVID-19, 24 in eastern Nevada County, 10 in western Nevada County. During yesterday's Board of Supervisors meeting, Jill Blake, Director of Public Health, and Dr. Cutler, the Public Health Officer, gave a presentation. In it, they said that while there have been 34 confirmed cases, 26 are no longer managed by the communicable disease nurses, indicating that they are recovering. Additionally, Dr. Cutler provided an estimate of tests done in Nevada County, which was 908 so far. And while that doesn't seem like a lot at first glance, with a population of slightly less than 100,000, that means that approximately 1 of every 110 residents has been tested. Compared to the rest of California, which according to Johns Hopkins data has performed 202,208 tests with a population of 39.51 million, that works out to 1 of every 200 Californians receiving a test. So overall, we're doing quite well. For the most up-to-date information, visit mynevadacounty.com/coronavirus. Nevada County Public Health has also released a recommendation that individuals wear cloth face coverings in public. They continue to recommend that our best community and individual steps to slow the transmission of COVID-19 include washing hands frequently, avoiding touching our eyes, nose, and mouth with unwashed hands, and physical distancing, especially by staying at home. But the addition of a cloth face covering is a great way to protect yourself and family. Some important notes. It's important to wash your hands before and after putting on a face covering. Try to minimize touching or adjusting the face covering. If you do touch it, wash your hands. You should also wash your cloth face covering between uses. Cloth face coverings are not a substitute for staying home when ill. And given the shortage of surgical masks and N95 respirators, those should be reserved mainly for healthcare workers and first responders until the shortage is over. In the current environment, purchases of these items by the general public will worsen these shortages for those who are taking care of ill patients. For more guidance, visit the CDC website listed below. The California Fish and Game Commission are meeting remotely today and tomorrow to discuss delegating temporary authority to the California Department of Fish and Wildlife to delay, suspend, or restrict sport or recreational fishing if it finds that such action is necessary to protect against the threat from COVID-19. We will update you on the outcome of this decision when it becomes available. With the weather warming up, just a reminder that most state parks in our area are still open, but many of the parking areas have been closed in an attempt to prevent large groups congregating in one place. Purdon Crossing has recently been added to the list of closed parking areas. Please use common sense, practice social distancing, and wear your cloth face covering if you do go out. Let's keep these recreation sites open for us all to use. Bear Yuba Land Trust is holding a virtual youth environmental summit for Earth Week, which is next week. This event will take place for the duration of the week, April 20th through 24th, each day from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. on a variety of platforms including Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and Zoom. It's a fun, interactive summit, open to all ages, and is free to attend. Each day there will be youth games and activities, midday chats with community experts, fun social media challenges, and links to external resources. To participate, navigate to Bear Yuba Land Trust's Facebook page and click on the groups. Join the Youth Environmental Summit group to participate. In this group, daily schedules will be posted and activities will occur every half hour from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. for the duration of the summit. Invite your friends and consider donating to Bear Yuba Land Trust to support the youth education in our community. Don't forget that many restaurants are still open for curbside pickup or delivery. Call your favorite establishment to check for their hours, and if you can, support local businesses in these difficult times. Several weeks ago, before there was even one confirmed case of COVID-19 in our county, we did an interview with Cindy Wilson from Nevada County Public Health to discuss the upcoming situation. Yesterday I talked with her once again to get an update on how things have progressed. many of us already are familiar with you here at Nevada County Media because we interviewed you about a month and a half ago.
It's hard to
And
believe it's been that long.
I know. And we've been using your interview in little bits and pieces throughout a lot of our news show. But for our viewers that don't know who you are, would you go ahead and introduce yourself and tell us what you do over at Public Health?
I'm glad to do that. My name is Cindy Wilson, and I'm the Director of Nursing with the Nevada County Public Health Department.
So, what, if anything, has changed since the last interview you gave? I know there's been a lot of new information and a lot of stuff going on. What can you tell us about that?
Wow, it seems like it was so long ago that we did that interview that almost everything has changed. I would say probably the biggest thing in our world here in Nevada County that has changed is we have cases now.
Right.
And as of right now, this afternoon on April the 14th, we're still sitting at 34 cases, and 14 of those are over in the eastern side of the county and 10 in the western side of Nevada County. And we've been at that number for a few days, so we're happy that has happened, that we're kind of holding the line, at least for now. So
Yeah.
that's probably a huge change. I think another big change has been the shelter in place orders that have gone out, or directives, whether from the state at the governor's level or the local level with our own public health officer here in Nevada County, as well as many other counties in this area and throughout the state, having a shelter in place order that means all of us need to be staying home, taking care of ourselves and socially distancing from people, or at least physically distancing from people, keeping our space and only going out for essential services.
Absolutely. And what about the face masks as well? I've seen you guys mentioning that quite a bit too.
Yeah, so that was actually a pretty big change that was more recent than the ones I just mentioned, because for several weeks the CDC as well as the California Department of Public Health were not making that recommendation. And then recently they came out and said they do want people to wear face coverings, which is a little bit different than a mask.
Okay.
And so a face covering can be a mask. It can be a homemade mask made out of cloth or material. It can even be a scarf that you have in your closet or something like that. And if you're going to wear one, it should cover both your nose and your mouth. And really what that's doing is protecting other people in case you would be breathing on them. And so now there is not an order or a directive, but this might help. And so wear one if you're out in public, if you can, if you feel comfortable. It's not a mandate. And so there are people who have asthma or a little bit of anxiety, claustrophobia, that can't wear a mask. They're not being required to wear that face covering. And along with that, we do want to make sure a couple of things. We want to make sure that the mask, the surgical masks, and the N95 respirators are held for those who need them most, which
Absolutely.
would be the people who are sick and the healthcare workers. So we don't want those being utilized as masks to go to the grocery store. And then the other thing that we want to make sure people understand is that covering your face with the face covering does not take the place of those other physical distancing things that we've talked about. So still staying 6 feet away from other people. If you do have to cough or sneeze, that you do that into your arm or into a tissue, then you throw that tissue away. And we're just keeping that physical distancing between ourselves and everybody else that's not in our household.
Sounds great. That's good to know.
So that part hasn't changed.
Okay. So as you said earlier, we've been at about the same case amount for, I think, about a week at this point.
Pretty close, yeah.
Yeah, so seems like good news. How do you interpret that information, and what should the public know about that?
So I don't know that we have a lot of interpretation at the moment. We are really glad that we've not seen an increase in cases. I do believe that when we look at our data, it's very similar throughout the region and throughout the state, that everybody saw a spike about the same time as we did in our region, and then a little bit of a flattening in this last week or so. So I think one interpretation is that we are actually accomplishing what all of these measures are meant to accomplish, which is decreasing the spread of the disease through the physical distancing, through shutting down except for those essential services. And that would be great news. If it's working, we need to keep it up, and we need to be even more vigilant. It's easy to get a little lax as we move through time. And I think that if we just look at our Nevada County data, we probably couldn't say that. But when we lay our data against the state's data, we probably can be a little more certain that it is working, that we are flattening that curve. We're seeing what we want to see from these measures.
That's great. But we need to make sure that people know, don't get too complacent yet, right?
Exactly. And, we just passed Easter weekend. I know it was probably hard on a lot of people to maintain those measures. I have a little bit of dread that next week or the week after that, we might see our numbers increase because people got a little bit lax and did not maintain those measures that have been put in place. I hope that doesn't happen, but it could.
So then, I know a lot of people have questions about testing and how that's working and what our numbers have been in the county and what different types of tests are even available. Would you be able to talk a little bit about some of that?
Now, that's probably everybody's number one question, especially when they're feeling a little bit sick. The question is, how can I be tested?
Right.
And unfortunately, we really don't have great answers to that even yet. So it is much more much more widely available than it had been, but it is still not sufficient to meet the needs and the demand. And that will need to change if we're going to loosen some of the measures that have been put in place to keep us apart. So our hospitals here, our epidemiologist looked at those numbers, and yesterday she was reporting that what she can gather is that it's about 900 tests.
Okay.
That information should be taken with a grain of salt because it's very crude numbers, and we don't know for sure that that is all of our residents, because the hospitals make some reports to us, and it could be not our residents that we're seeing those negative results come back on.
Gotcha.
And it could be that people in our county are being tested in another place, and we don't have any information about that. So it really is a number that's kind of arbitrary. A lot of people have been asking about it. We cannot say it with any scientific certainty that it is accurate.
Gotcha.
So given that, the hospitals are both working on more rapid testing, but it is still reserved on a triaged basis, a priority basis, and pretty much it's for people who are sick enough to be in the hospital. So if I get a mild case and I call my healthcare provider, the healthcare provider might be able to arrange for me to be tested, but it's also just as likely that at this point, they're still just going to say, if your symptoms are manageable at home, then we suggest you stay home, you manage your symptoms, and you take over-the-counter medications for your cough and for your aches, and that we won't know at this point if that's what you actually had or not. We do hope we will eventually get to the point where we can test anybody who has mild symptoms. And it does look like right now, somewhere in the neighborhood of 10 to 12% of the tests being done are positive. So, and that's throughout the state. And so not just Nevada County, but our numbers probably match up to that. Actually, we've probably done more negative testing than average when you take a look at our numbers. And then the other thing that's up and coming, people are asking a lot about the antibody testing.
Right. That was my next question.
Yeah. So the testing, if you have symptoms, is a swab in the back of your nose, and then it's looking for the active virus. The antibody testing is looking for whether you have had the virus and have developed antibodies in your blood. So it's a blood test. And so what that's called is an IgG, and it would indicate whether you've had the previous infection, you've developed antibodies, and so we could get a better idea of how this is impacting us across the population if that test becomes widely available. From what I understand, it's still a research project at the moment, pretty big in Santa Clara County, and they are still analyzing their results and then analyzing what those results mean. And I have heard in the last day or so that we're not expecting to hear the results back from them for another few weeks.
All right, but at least that lets people know a little bit of a time frame to expect with that kind of thing.
Yeah, and it'll be interesting to see what they find out. I'm quite curious myself, especially since Santa Clara County was kind of a big hotspot right in the beginning of this pandemic for the state of California, to look and see, do we have a lot of symptomatic people would be that have actually made antibodies, would be an amazing piece of information to have.
So what about then treatment options? I know there's been a lot of talk from the president even about hydroxychloroquine. I believe I'm saying that correctly.
I think so, yeah.
And what about other options? I've also heard talk of plasma transfusions.
So I think both of those are perhaps promising. I think that for those of us who live in a world where we like to see clinical trials and we like to see things be evidence-based, it's hard to jump on those bandwagons right in the early stages, because we really want to see proof that this works, not just somebody's idea. And so the one you mentioned, hydroxychloroquine, which is used to treat malaria in other parts of the world, is one of the things that is being moved forward to test, at least. And then combining that with the antibiotic azithromycin is also a possibility.
Okay.
There are possibilities from some of the antiviral drugs that are commonly used to treat HIV and AIDS. And then what you mentioned about the plasma transfusion, so taking somebody who's recently had it and giving their plasma to somebody who's sick with it, that works for some other infectious diseases. So it could work for this one as well. Another thing that is being looked at is some of the anti-inflammatory drugs, particularly some that are used to treat arthritis. So
interesting.
All of those are just in the beginning of research. And so I don't think anybody can at this point say with any certainty that, yes, this is going to be the treatment, but there's lots of moving forward to try to figure out what can help, what could help, and then seeing where the evidence leads us, and hopefully really good studies, not just opinions and anecdotes, but carefully controlled studies where we study the evidence and find out, yes, this works, or no, it doesn't.
So are you aware of any preparations for any of that kind of stuff here in the county itself? Do we have anything on hand to be able to do any of that? Or are we waiting to get more information before we make any sort of leaps?
I do not think that Nevada County is probably poised for research studies that require some connections with universities, usually university type hospitals. So that would be something like Stanford, UCLA, USC, those kinds of places. They're going to be doing that for us, and we're going to be able to benefit from their research and what they learn from all of this. But I doubt that Nevada County's hospitals would be involved in that. Could be wrong. I'd be happy if I'm wrong, but I don't foresee that.
Yeah. Okay. And so then looking towards the future, what does the roadmap for recovery start to look like for us here?
Well, I think that today the governor had a press release and he talked a little bit about what he foresees that meaning. And he had some criteria that I think he wants to see happen, but we are not close to meeting all of those at this point. So to me, that indicates that the recovery could be fairly long. And we've all been talking about flattening the curve for quite some time. And if we've truly managed to do that, we want it to stay down. We don't want to see another big spike. We don't want to loosen the things that are working and then cause a surge in our cases and more spread in our community. So to me, what the future looks like is let's work really hard to stay where we are, keep our cases low, not increasing them every single day by several people, but keeping it to a point where the hospitals in our community can take care of the people who are sick. Our healthcare providers can see their patients who are having symptoms and give them an appropriate diagnosis. And then if they're needing further care in the hospital or the intensive care unit, that we have the equipment, we have the supplies, and we have the staff to take care of our community members.
Well, is there anything else that you'd like to add or something important that I haven't asked you about yet?
I think the thing I would like to say is we really appreciate the endeavors that Nevada County residents have put into the efforts, the things that they've been asked to do. It is not easy to do what we've all been asked to do, to stay home from work. It's causing a lot of consequences, and that causes pain to all of us. to have to make a choice between the health of our community from a virus and the health of our community from an economic standpoint or even a mental health standpoint.
Yeah.
So I guess my message will be to say thank you, but also to encourage people that it does seem to be working. So please continue to do what you've been doing, and then to take care of ourselves. That during this time, things are changing, things are evolving. It's not easy to know what to do on even a day-to-day basis. Everything is different than it was just a short time ago since the last time I talked with you folks. And so keep learning, keep progressing, keep doing the right things. Help us to maintain a flat level of cases.
Well, thank you for taking the time to talk with me today.
Sure thing. I appreciate your time too.
Great work by our public health professionals, and thanks once again for talking with me, Cindy. We'll leave you tonight with a video from Chris Entz, a prolific local writer. It's called Quarantine Madness. Enjoy. And remember, stay safe, take care of each other, and we'll see you tomorrow.
California, day 12, being quarantined with my loved ones. At first it was okay. It was like a really nice long weekend. And then madness. It's too much togetherness. This entire experience has made me very much aware that I want a man in my life, just not in my house. Hook up my DVD player and my printer, maybe help me flip the mattress now and then get out. Yesterday, the man asked me where we keep the spoons. The spoons. For God's sake, we've been married 31 years. The spoons are kept where they always are kept, in the silverware drawer. He recently found all of the old cassettes of music that he used to listen to when he was in high school and thought it would be fun if we just listened to those songs yesterday. There's only so much of the band America a person can listen to. I mean, that stupid song, riding through the desert on a horse with no name. It's not deep, it's stupid. I mean, name your horse, for crying out loud. Prickly Pete's a good name. Snoopy. Just name it and be done with it. I'm hiding in here because I don't think he can find me in here. The man can't find the spoons. Chances are he's not going to look in the closet for his wife. And if he does, I'm going to have to watch all 5 of the Planet of the Apes movies. He thought that would be a good time for us this evening. Oh, the horror.